Welcome, Rasika Shekar, to Flute Unscripted. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katie. This is such a pleasure to be here and to be chatting with you. I'm excited.
Where are you talking to us from?
I'm in New Jersey right now.
Great.
I grew up in New Jersey and I am back here. I was visiting my family and we had to push our trip back to India for a bit. We're kind of, yeah, we've been here for a few months now.
Great. And you're originally from Dubai. You were born there and you moved to the US when you were just about 12. But you actually went to school in Jersey. You started off pursuing a
Yeah,
career in chemical engineering at Rutgers for your
yeah.
bachelor's, and you saw that through. And then for your master's, you decided to study jazz at Berklee. So,
Yeah.
what made that shift for you, and why was Berklee a good fit?
Nice. Yeah, so I was born in Dubai. I We moved to the US when I was 12 and I started learning the Indian classical flute, the bamboo flute. And after that I went off to college to do engineering because I didn't really think of music as an option at that point of time. In college, I was starting to play with a lot of my friends who were from different backgrounds, like different musical backgrounds. And so we would spend time doing Indian classical music and jazz and Western music and everything. And that's where I kind of got exposed to a lot of different forms of music and performance. So after that, after I finished my engineering, I told myself that I would go to India to study Hindustani classical music, which is the North Indian classical music, for about 6 months, and then perhaps come back and look for a job as an engineer in a chemical plant or something like that. Um, However, I ended up staying there for much, much longer than I anticipated, which was great because a lot of opportunities came my way. And I got a lot of opportunities to play flute in different projects as well as sing in a lot of films and stuff like that. So it was a very exciting journey that was starting to happen at that point of time. A couple of years after doing that and exploring and studying Hindustani classical music, I um, figured that, or I was looking for something else to expand my vocabulary on the Indian flute. And so I wanted to go and study music formally in a university sort of an atmosphere because all the training that I'd done before that was one-on-one. It was from a guru and a student. Typically, how it's done in Indian classical music. So you don't really go to a school, but it's pretty, one-on-one. And I think the idea of just being in university or college to do music was exciting to me because I would get to meet a lot of other musicians from different musical backgrounds. Berkeley seemed like the best fit at that point of time because, I was coming from a very different background. Like it wasn't a Western classical background. I did consider a lot of colleges, in New York and in California and stuff like that. But Berkeley was kind of like a good hybrid of a lot of different things. I could come from a very different background, like an Indian classical background, and have the opportunity to still sort of explore my sound and expand on it. Plus, it was a 1 year program, like a little more than a year, which was perfect for me at that point of time of my career. I mean, I was getting to live in Spain, so that was an added bonus for there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And what would you say is kind of when you've come a long way since then? What highlight in your career do you think was a moment when you thought, "Wow, this has really taken off, and I've kind of made it," quote unquote?
I don't know about made it. That would be I mean, it's like a very scary thought to, think about made it. But there was a moment I was performing in Spain with the great legend John McLaughlin, and I think it was like a crazy moment on stage because it took me a really long time. I don't think I still believe it, but on stage at that point of time, to be able to play with such a legend and really experienced music because of his energy on stage and everything really felt like, wow, this is amazing, and I'm so grateful to be here at this point of time. And it was a huge audience, and I felt so much at ease because we were really just performing the music and nothing else was nothing came to my mind, and it was a very magical moment for me. That was definitely one of the times that I really felt like, okay, it was so worth it. All this time, all this journey, this entire journey was so worth it.
Yeah, his music is great. He's a fantastic player.
Oh, yeah, yeah, legend.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. So, I mean, how did you get to that spot of being comfortable in front of thousands of people. Like you said, you played in stadiums. Is that kind of feel comfortable to you? Are you a little introverted? How did you get to be comfortable in that spotlight?
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting thing about my journey and my music. I'm a very introverted person by nature. I've always been. Growing up, especially after moving here, I became extremely shy, and I would freak out. Like I would panic if I had to speak in front of people, or even speak to two, three people at the same time. Um, and I remember when I was a teenager, there would be these like community events where you had to go up and sing or go up and play, and I would make all sorts of excuses to not do that because I was scared of being in front of people. And I think in somewhere in college, like that just flipped for me because I feel like I really understood or I really experienced the magic that music does to me, and suddenly it was like this huge realization. I don't know what, it was very magical for me. So from then on, I'm most comfortable on stage right now. Like it's home for me. I feel most alive on stage. I feel the most true to myself when like my authentic self on stage. And I mean, there's always nervousness, but stage feels very comfortable at this point of time. It's just amazing how that's completely flipped for me. Not to say that I've become any more extroverted at this point in time, but that's the place that I can completely be me and just let go and yeah, just feel really really great.
Can you talk a little bit more about your collection of flutes as well?
Yeah, sure. So I have a set of bamboo flutes. I only play the bamboo flute. So they are from different parts of India. All the bamboo comes from. I have some bamboo flutes that are from south of India. I have some bamboo flutes that are from north of India, and I've just sort of collected them over time and from different makers. I've also visited these different makers, sat with them and understood their way of crafting these flutes. And So I probably have, I don't know, 30, 40 different
Wow.
types of flutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a flute for every pitch. And then what also happens is every player has a different experience with it. So it's not like a standard thing. So a G sharp for me would perhaps feel perfectly in pitch, maybe for another person because of the way that they, breathe. It could be either a little flat or sharp, so it kind of depends.
Right.
So I've kind of lived with these flutes for a very long time and found my comfort. So it takes a few years to really get comfortable with a set of flutes. So all in all, probably I've probably collected more than 40, 50 at this point.
You're done. You compose as well. Can you talk a little bit about your music, your musical style, and how you're influenced by jazz? There's maybe some similarities between Carnatic music and jazz. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right after I moved to India, it's very interesting because I grew up in the US learning Indian music, and when I went to India to study Indian classical music, I was exposed to jazz. So it was a very kind of like a very different experience, like atypical experience, and I really fell in love with jazz because entirely for the soul that it has, the expression point of things. So I started listening to Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, all the vocalists at that point in time. After that, when I started digging deep into it, is when I started listening to John Coltrane and Miles Davis, and what I found fascinating is the concept of rhythm and phrasing and improvisation is kind of relatable because coming from a Carnatic background, which is Indian classical background, we improvisation is a big part of our music, and um, it's the same in jazz. So there's a lot of scope for improvising and expressing. Um, it's just that the framework's a little different, and maybe the context is a little different. But that seemed very interesting for me to start looking into, to start studying more and really find a nice hybrid, or what's that spot where Carnatic music meets jazz. And not only for you know, in a true sense of hybrid. What I mean is, I really wanted to get out of my comfort zone and understand what jazz is, or what are the types of phrasings, what are the types of vocabulary that jazz musicians play with, and really understand that, and then come to forming a nice hybrid space. So that's what kind of actually motivated me to go to Berklee and study more. So fusion in the sense, I mean, I think the word fusion is kind of like has so many different meanings today. But it was important for me to step out of that comfort zone, like really step out of whatever I've learned and been comfortable with for all these years, and step into another world and kind of take in that music and just fill my system with it and then just express naturally.
Do you think there are any misconceptions about your music, the music that you compose?
I I hope not. I'm not sure. So far, yeah, so far I've been lucky. I've heard great things, a lot of encouragement, a lot of great words about my music. I think I'm still on that exploring pathway. Like I think there's a lot of different things that's in my mind and heart, and I really want to, experiment with a lot of things. So I hope there are any misconceptions. I do know that whatever I do, I really try and do it with all my heart. There's a lot of honesty, and I just hope at the end of the day, if I can, you know, touch someone's heart and really make them smile, or at least feel the music, that's my job done. I would be very happy if I can accomplish that.
You kind of have a great attitude of always being flexible and open-minded. How do you set a goal for yourself and dream big, but also at the same time keep an open mind and be flexible? Is that something that you've mastered or something you're still working on?
I think it's like a daily battle, to be honest. You know, because we're so used to being in our comfort zone, we because that makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like even as a youngster, growing up, I was always sort of running away from norms. If someone would tell me like this is the fashion, this is what everyone's doing, I would kind of run away from that. I don't know why. I think it was just like in my system. Um, but that being said, I think constantly opening up your minds in every situation is a conscious thing. And it's the same with music because it's so subjective. It's at the end of the day you have to kind of let go of definitions and ego and everything when you're creating music and just let it flow from a very natural space. And I kind of help try and remind myself of that every day. It's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of flux really just in and
Yeah.
out. But it's I think finding that sweet spot is so worth it. Like the experience of it is so amazing that it's worth being
All
on
the
this
hard
path.
work. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to, I'm kind of curious if you have to listen to any unsolicited advice from your family. You've mentioned that they're musical,
yeah,
they're passionate about music too and trained in
yeah,
music as well. So do
yeah.
they ever give you any advice or critiques about your career, kind of what you do and your music?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think the most important thing is the support that I get. They're very encouraging, and I mean, I'm really blessed to have that because I know how precious it is, and I can always come back and ask for advice, or know that they are there to have my back and encourage me and support me because it can be a very up and down kind of thing. You lose hope sometimes, and they're always there to sort of remind me that. Just being in the arts is great. There's so much to gain from it. In terms of music, yeah, I have my mom's a vocalist and she also plays veena, which is an Indian traditional classical instrument. My grandmother plays a violin. My aunt sings and she also plays a violin. So I have a lot of musicians in the family, and I can always go and ask, like have very honest advice and honest like critique on my music. In the beginning, of course, when I was shifting away from Carnatic music or classical music and trying to explore things, there was a little bit of a, like, are you sure? Do you want to do all this? Like, are you sure? Kind of thing. And it was good to have, but it was never in a way of, demotivating me. It was always like, you should learn more. I think that was something that's always um, my mom always keeps saying you have to keep learning. You can never stop learning, and you just have to learn. Like she'll always tell me, take classes, just keep learning, keep learning. That's going to happen the rest of your life. So that way it's been great, just as a reminder every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you wanted 2020 to kind of be a year of great artistic output for you.
yeah,
You achieve that? How has the pandemic affected things that you've been able to release? I know you had a music video come out soon.
yeah. 2020 was I mean, very interesting for everyone, I'm sure. Luckily, I was kind of anyways planning on 2020 being the year where I write more music and I release more music, which thankfully happened for me. I was the only difference was that I was stuck at home, kind of editing and doing stuff on my by myself, which is great because I learned a couple of different skills. Luckily, we shot the video exactly in Feb, and I had just traveled back to India. I shot a video in Paris, and I came back, and lockdown had begun. So everything that was left was to coordinate with the director in Paris and work on the edit and release the music. And so I got an opportunity to really spend time with it and start crafting my sound, which is great. And then just to keep the momentum going, I was able to do another video towards the end of the year, and we actually shot that in India, right when the lockdown was kind of like easing out a little bit. So it's been great. I've been really blessed to have a productive year. These release a couple of singles out there.
Yeah, I mean, one in particular is your song and music video, Yavam, and that features a lot of women dancing in the video who juggle being an artist, being the creative side of them with another side, making a living,
Yeah,
business. Really like nice juxtapositions to see people doing many things and wearing many hats. So
yeah,
I'm sure that's familiar to you. Can you talk a little
yeah,
bit more about that project and the inspiration behind it?
yeah. Yavam is my most special project that I've done till date. I wrote it end of 2019 for a festival, and during the lockdown, I started producing it so that we could release it as an audio. And when I heard it, I felt like a video was very apt for it. And I've spent a few months, couple of weeks trying to figure out what is the right type of video that we can do for this music and this song. So what it really essentially talks about is personal freedom in essence, especially being a woman. The small types of wins that we have on an everyday basis. I mean, it's not about woman empowerment or anything. These small moments of victories that we have, crossing our own barriers that we have in our minds. Like we're so conditioned to so many different things on an everyday basis, especially as women. We have a lot of layers of conditioning that we're working against every day. And we have those moments where we really step beyond that and we make a bold move, or we make something that we stand for ourselves, or just go past that little barrier. And that's what the song is about. So I was trying to figure out what's the best way to capture this in a visual sense. And I met the director of the video, and we spoke about this, and she was very excited to bring this to life. And she sent me a couple of ideas, and I loved it. I loved the fact that she talked about bringing different people from different parts of the globe. And I think the lockdown really allowed for that, because had it not been this year, maybe I would have, or we would have never thought about this idea, because we would have probably gone and done it in person. But it was a great opportunity to connect with people from different parts of the world. And all these beautiful women in the video aren't, they're kind of juggling a lot of things. They're professionals, they have kids, they are, doing like multiple things, and they're still very passionate about their arts, dance and music. And dance as a form is something that I feel goes hand in hand with music. And we were really happy to get different dancers, like Indian classical dancers, to feature in the video. So in essence, what we were trying to say is all these amazing women that are doing so many different things. I'm sure they have their moments of personal freedom and these small wins that they encounter on an everyday basis. And it's just to people, tell people, go for it. Like there's just so much beauty in that. Like cherish those moments, cherish that moment where you find your freedom and really find that moment for yourself. And that was the idea behind the video. And it was so exciting to we were on Zoom calls and directing the video, so it was amazing. It's an amazing
What is
experience.
that? What is that moment for you personally?
For me, so many different moments. I feel like I go through that like on everyday
Yeah.
moment. It's like there are a couple of uh expectations that we have as women, and sometimes we kind of assume that it's there. Like for example, if you're married and you have a certain expectation that because I'm a woman, I'm supposed to do something. Now, whether my spouse told me to do it or not, I kind of assume a couple of things, right?
Right.
And and then you really start thinking like, wait a minute, like I've been conditioned to this. I've been conditioned to thinking that I need to be this way or I need to do this thing, and sometimes it's not the reality. And those were the types of moments like where I stepped beyond my own like conditioning or beyond my filters, beyond the things that I thought, was exactly the way that I had to do it. Same thing with my instrument. I felt like for the longest time I never knew that I could, play a fusion tune on my instrument because I came from a very strict, conservative, traditional background, and it was scary. Like for the longest time, I couldn't cross over.
Yeah. The moment that had happened was magical. And it's not about, externally celebrating that. Just in my mind, it was a bold step. Like it was just get past and really feel good. So yeah, a lot of moments, especially, that's one example that comes to mind.
You're a vocalist as well. I mean, you sing on stage and you play flute. Do you feel like those go hand in hand? They help you, the singing help you find your voice on the flute and vice versa? Which one do you use when you're composing primarily?
Nice. Yeah, it's a great question. I've struggled with this question for a very long time because I had everyone tell me, a lot of people tell me that I had to pick one. And there was a constant advice that came to me when I was growing up, telling me that you had to pick one because you cannot do both. It's going to affect your voice or it's going to affect your playing. And it used to make me very sad because I really enjoyed singing and I enjoyed playing as well. And then I reached a point where I felt like both of these things kind of go hand in hand and they help me express music very differently and they make me understand music very differently. So I sort of decided to do both. And um, what comes naturally when I compose is to sing a tune. Um, it's just a voice. It's just it's just very natural to express something. And yeah, so I'd say singing is most natural to me in terms of composing something.
Yeah. Something else I kind of wanted to go into was playing flute and singing playback for films. That's another part of your career that you've done a lot of. How did you get introduced to that?
Yeah, this is all thanks to this legendary singer in India. His name is Mr. Shankar Mahadevan, and there are three composers, Shankar Ehsaan and Loy, and they're huge, like amazing, legendary composers in Bollywood. And I met him and just sent him a demo, or I actually sang in front of him, and he was impressed, and he said, why don't you sing for a film that we're doing at this point of time, and let's try your voice out, and so that's where it started. And I went into the studio, and I was a very young, just kind of out of college. I didn't really know much about studios. I didn't know much about how the music world worked. And then he heard me sing and he was impressed, and they asked me to go on tour with them, so I started performing with them. And then came a lot of opportunities to sing for films, which was great experience because you're behind the mic and you're expressing, you're kind of being different characters at that point of time. You have to understand what's the context of the song, what the song does in that film, and who the character, where's your voice being placed. So you get an opportunity to express your voice in very different ways. So it was very, yeah, a big learning experience.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And also to almost be an actor yourself and take on those different
Yeah, yeah,
roles. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You've collaborated with a ton of legends. So what's it like to play on the stage with an idol? And then on the other side of it, have you ever played with anyone that idolizes you that is kind of blown away, like, oh my God, I get to play on stage with you?
Yeah. Um, yeah, but the first part of playing with an idol, yeah, it's really hard to find words to describe it because there's so much going on in your mind. And first of all, you're pinching yourself,
Yeah.
trying to understand if this is really happening. And then um, the most valuable thing from those experiences is, in my experience, just to see the amazing human beings that these legends have been. Um, that's something that you really get to see close up because you can listen to their music, on YouTube, or you stream it, or cassettes or CDs or anything like that. But when you get to perform with them, you really got to get a chance to see closely how they interact with musicians, how they speak to people, how they think about music, how what's the aura like? And it's magical. It's amazing. And that's what blew my mind every time I was on stage with an idol. And I think I've learned so much from those experiences that is something that, you know, you cannot get in a lesson, or you cannot get in just practicing your instrument. These are things beyond music. These are things that shape you as a human being in some sense. Um, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. And the other part of it where, yeah, there have been a couple of instances where it's very humbling, and there have been people who kind of like, you know, I guess idolize me. That's so weird to say. It's funny, but and yeah, you're in that situation, and it's very humbling, and it's overwhelming, to be honest, because I don't know how to react to that, because I'm thinking about the music, and there's someone that kind of, you know, looks up to you, and I feel a sense of responsibility at that point, because I feel like, okay, that's amazing that if this music can reach out to someone and maybe make their day or inspire them to pick up that instrument, and that's happened, it just motivates me even more to keep doing this. And it's very, very humbling. It's great. It's I don't know how to, you know,
Yeah.
it's difficult to, like, you know,
Sure.
deal with it, I guess. But it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
Are there any new artists that you listen to in your spare time, and anybody that you kind of have this like dream collaboration that you want to do in the future?
Oh, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of FKJ
Great.
in the recent past. I love his music, and dream collab for sure. If I can send up the signals to the universe to make that happen, that'd be great. Yeah, I really connect with his music a lot.
You're also offering some online classes for bamboo flute.
Mm.
Why are these classes being offered? What do you hope to give back to people? And who are
Yeah,
they for? Who can take these classes?
yeah. Um, there's a lot of interest in learning the bamboo flute. And one thing that's really nice about these online classes is that we're able to reach people that are living in different parts of the world, different parts of India, which is great, because there aren't that many flute teachers out there, as of what I know, and there's a lot of interest. And I'm really happy that there's a medium to be able to do that and really give back to people who have given me so much love and so many blessings. So I hope that, if, you know, by spending some time and teaching them, or at least sharing whatever I know, that we could cultivate their interest further. And if they can take something out of the music or from the instrument, that can change them, like that can change him or her in a very profound way. That's amazing. That's a gift that I don't take lightly. And typically, we've seen interest for bamboo flutes. I've also had a lot of people who play the Western flute and, you know, message me and ask if
Yeah.
I can teach for that. And it's very interesting for me, because you know, ultimately I think whether it's the Western flute or the Indian bamboo flute, there's so much in common, and there's so much about music that I can talk about and share. So it doesn't really bind me to anything. It doesn't restrict me. In fact, I have students who have started with the Western flute, and then, you know, they also want to learn the Indian bamboo flute, and it's almost like two different instruments, because your technique is very different and your repertoire is different, your vocabulary is different, but at the same time there's so much in common. And so through these I get to learn a lot about, you know, how people kind of switch over to another flute. So yeah, it's been great. It's actually, I feel like I learned more
Of
from
course. Yeah.
myself.
Well, do you
Yeah.
have any advice for someone that might be interested in, you know, maybe a Western flute, classical flute player that might be interested in picking up the bamboo flute? What's the first thing that they should do?
First thing is, go listen to some music. Like, listen to some music that's just strictly bamboo flute, and, you know, see how you feel about the sound. I think the sound part of it is magic. magical. And the second thing is definitely go out, buy a flute, like really try it out. It's exciting, and it's not going to be hard for them because you already know how to produce sound, and you already know your basic fingering, so it's
Right.
going to be much easier. And it might just add another dimension to your playing on your current instrument, so it's going to be exciting. So I'd say go for an experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you working on now? What do you have planned for the future?
I have an album planned for the future. I've just started writing my album, which was a long time in the making, not making, a long time in the planning. So that's what I feel like it just felt like the really right moment right now where a lot of my ideas are very clear in my head. So that's what I'm really looking forward to working on that the next few months.
Well, great. We look forward to it coming out and listening. Thank you so much for being here today and for talking with me. It was really great to get to know you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you. Yeah, it's been really great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Alrighty.